The other day, I was talking with my producer, Thal, on how humans perceive each other. Thal was saying that when people remember their friends and loved ones, it's all in very broad strokes. We're apt to miss finer details, remembering instead certain features that stand out. Haircuts, glasses, jewelry. I myself have been rendered unrecognizable to casual acquaintances just by shaving off my beard. But not everyone is so callous, right? Like, I'm a reporter. It's my job to notice things. Surely, I remember more of the people I met. I'm no Sherlock Holmes, but I get by. So Thal asked me, had I noticed that my friend Magda, who had met Thal a handful of times by now, had I noticed that Magda always wore a scarf? As in, had I noticed that every single day of our friendship, Magda had worn a scarf around her neck?
Well, I don't know how much time you have, but there's quite a few in here.
Yeah.
This is one of 3 closets. So, well, this one, this pink one, it's kind of translucent, but opaque enough just for the right purposes. I got this one at a fair downtown. There's a bunch of artists that set up carts in the street, and I just couldn't leave it there. Well, and then there's this one. This one is very light, good for summer days.
This is Magda showing me her scarves in her apartment. Magda has a vast scarf collection. She has more scarves than anything else, and I will be honest with you, Thal was right. I never noticed that she wore a scarf every single day. Every single day.
Every single day. Yes. Ever since I moved here.
What happened when you moved here?
Well, I got a new job, and I got a new apartment, and I got bitten by a vampire.
This is Jared Axelrod, and you are listening to the voice of Free Planet X. Magda lives in a neighborhood just west of Center City. It's affectionately been dubbed B-Town. You can see why someone who's never lived in a big city before would gravitate toward this neighborhood. There's a lot of night spots and an old, funky buildings. There's a real artsy vibe to the place. And it's cheap. Perfect for a young professional like Magda.
So it was my first night in the city, and I didn't know anyone, and my job hadn't really started yet, so I decided to go out and go into this dumb, 80s club, and they're playing, Bauhaus or something. And there was this woman there, and I just couldn't stop staring at her. It was just something otherworldly about her, you know? I go over to her and we start talking, and at one point the music gets really, really loud, and she motions for me to come closer to her and talk into her ear, you know? So I do, and that's when she just clamps down on my neck.
Did it hurt?
You know what? It didn't. You'd think something like that would. You'd think it would. After that night, my whole life changed. Lucy, the woman who bit me, Lucy, she was involved in the local vampire community and wanted to introduce me around, kind of, show me off to her vampire friends, and I just didn't want any of that. I didn't want to be a part of this subculture, you know?
But you said you didn't have any friends when you moved here.
Yeah, but I didn't want those friends.
Lucy declined to be recorded. But her enthusiasm can perhaps be forgiven. Not everyone who is bitten by a vampire will turn into one. Many people are bitten and never realize it. Contained within a vampire's saliva are enzymes that work both as an anesthetic and as something that hampers short-term memory creation. Combined with another enzyme that promotes healing, most people walk away from a vampire bite with nothing more than a feeling of lightheadedness and a hickey they can't quite explain. But for someone like Magda, it's more than that. About 10% of the population react differently to the bite of a vampire. Over the next few days, their skin becomes very sensitive to sunlight and tightens, giving a more youthful appearance. There's a significant increase in pheromone production. Their body no longer creates hemoglobin, necessitating the injection or drinking of blood. And they grow fangs.
Oh god, the fangs. The fangs were a nightmare. They're retractable, but when they first come out, you don't know how to send them back. So they're just out there for days. I barely spoke to people. I couldn't open my mouth. I was just so afraid that someone at work would notice. Lucy helped me pull them back, but even now I worry. Like, can you see them? How about you? Does the bus driver notice?
While her fangs are easily hidden, one element of Magda's vampirism wasn't. The enzymes that allow a bite on a victim to heal quickly does the same thing to small cuts and bruises on Magda's body. Except for the bite marks that Lucy gave her the first night they met. Those two puncture wounds have never quite healed.
I've tried to cover them with makeup, but they're still noticeable. That's why I went with the scarves. The mark of Cain.
Do you believe that?
My mother would.
But do you?
Sometimes. It's weird. After all this, I still can't help but think, why me? This was not the life I was supposed to lead.
Well, as near as we can tell, people who have the genetic predisposition to be turned are also most likely to be attracted to vampire pheromones. In a way, they were already a vampire from the moment of their birth. They just didn't have the catalyst. If you'll pardon the metaphor, for which I apologize, it's in their blood.
This is Dr. Abraham Hestelius. Dr. Hestelius is the director of blood disorders at Johns Hopkins and one of the leading authorities on vampirism.
There are some conditions we've known about for a long time that people have tried to tie into what it means to be a vampire. I think it's important to jump to some of the recent science, some of the recent things that we have understood about people who do have vampirism.
Is being afflicted with vampirism, or just having vampirism, I'm still working on the right terminology, is that anything to be ashamed of, in your opinion? Is that a cause for shame? Or, I guess, there's people been talking about quarantining those with vampirism and separating them from the rest of society. Is that necessary?
That is an interesting question that I think, again, coming at it from a medical standpoint, I don't think it's anything to be ashamed of. I don't think that quarantines are something that makes any sense. Again, even though these syndromes that we've recently identified appear to be due to infectious agents, in and of itself, that does not mean that we should, in my opinion, limit the rights of the people who unfortunately are suffering from these disorders. There is a social stigma that has been with this in terms of not allowing vampires to, say, travel internationally, not able to donate blood, even though we've had excellent tests that can detect vampirism, and maybe even processes that are being developed to try to remove it from the blood supply. And there are many social factors in which people are discriminated against, even in the medical establishment. For instance, sometimes folks who have vampires, if they need a particular surgery, there may be a surgeon who says, I don't want to do surgery on this patient because it's too risky for me, when in fact, if they do all the usual things that you do, say when you do a surgery, with gowns and with gloves and with masks, and you're careful with your technique, then there really is no increased risk of anything from those patients to, say, that medical provider compared with anyone else. And so there is a big social stigma, also apparently based on how you acquire it. It has to do with blood. And the biggest ways that people are exposed to blood are, as you know, potentially risky sexual behaviors or using intravenous drugs. And so these things are, there's an element of society that says if you are engaging in any of these things, then maybe we're going to judge you as being not as good of a person as someone who doesn't do those things.
Talking with normal people is almost impossible. I'm constantly on guard. What did you do over the weekend? I definitely didn't drink any blood. I'd never do a thing like that. I was gonna get my hair cut the other day, and I stopped because I was worried if I cut it too short, I would obviously look like a vampire.
Have you told your parents?
Oh, God. No. Never. It would kill them. To hear their daughter is a vampire, it would kill them. My mom, she had all these, I don't want to say plans, but, white wedding dress. I'd give her a bunch of grandkids, normal life. It was supposed to be easy, but now normal has gotten really, really hard.
I don't see the point in anyone living in the coffin.
Right? Who benefits from our silence? Certainly not us.
Nicodemus and Ash are activists within the vampire community. They started Fangs Out, which encourages young vampires not to hide who they are.
The thing is, there's this stigma, and it's so outdated. The people think we're monsters that we...
Don't say monster. I would really rather you not perpetuate that stereotype.
Fine. They think we're different.
Okay. All right.
We're different, and they think of these old superstitions, and it's simply not true. I happen to love garlic, for example.
And don't even get me started about mirrors.
I don't even know what I would do without mirrors.
That's certainly a complex hairdo, so I
Why,
shudder
thank
to
you.
think how you might put that together without a mirror.
That kind of fake monster makeup, Halloween sort of thing isn't who we really are.
Listen, there's good vampires and there's bad vampires, just like there's good people and there's bad people. But look at the numbers. Since we've been out, there have been 0 cases of any child abductions that can be legitimately tied back to vampires. It just isn't there.
I do counseling with young vampires when they've just started to come out of the coffin, so to speak. Many of them struggle to fit into society, particularly teenagers. I try and caution against radical action and teach them how to deal with some of the backlash that occurs when you become a vampire.
That's really good, because I hear the transition is difficult going from one end to the other.
Well, it's no stake in the heart, but no, I'm sorry. I shouldn't perpetuate old stereotypes. Of course it's a difficult transition. It's the difference between being dead and alive. There can't be a bigger difference.
Have you ever had a migraine?
Yes.
Can you imagine trying to concentrate on a medical exam while under the effects of a migraine?
It sounds impossible.
Multiply that by 1,000 and you have a sense of what it's like for us trying to accomplish everyday tasks when we're out in the sun. It's horrible.
What would you say to critics who would say that you deserve that sort of thing, having chosen this lifestyle?
I did not choose to be a vampire. But that does not mean that I don't embrace my vampiricness nonetheless. It's about pride. It's about caring about who you are and presenting it as something to be proud of instead of something to be ashamed of. I don't want to hide who I am.
If we aren't out there saying we're vampires, then people are going to continue to think, oh, that's somebody else. That's not something I deal with. I don't know anybody who's a vampire.
We're here, and we want to be heard. We don't want to be ignored. I think it's important that we make ourselves present. No more fading into the night. No more black cloaks and swooping. We're just going to sit next to you in your classroom and at your table, enjoying your society like any other member of it.
Exactly. No more lurking in the shadows. That time has passed, right? And if we want to be treated as equals, as people who are deserving of basic rights, then we have to be open about who we are, and we have to say, this is us.
For most of the vampires in V-Town, the dramatic clothes and fanciful posturing are badges of pride, but not for Magda.
That's just not who I am. I see those vampires and I think, I'm not like that. That's not me. I wear earth tones.
So it doesn't feel right when you're with Lucy?
No, it's not. That may be the worst of it. When I'm with Lucy, it's like, it's a natural thing. It's like who I've always been.
But you don't feel comfortable admitting that to others?
I just don't want it to change how they see me. As a vampire first. I'm more than that.
So Magda wears her scarves. Her co-workers, friends, and family don't have any idea how she spends her nights. It's a difficult separation, and Magda isn't sure how long she'll be able to keep it up.
I can't help but think, if I hadn't met her that night, my life would have been completely different.
Do you wish you hadn't met her?
No. Never. She's the best part of my life.
The Voice of Free Planet X is written and produced by Jared Axelrod. This episode featured music by The Zero Project. The Voice of Free Planet X theme is by Russell Collins. This episode could not have existed without the performances of
Diana Cameron McQueen.
John Smock.
Nick Popio.
And Ashley Popio.
and the support of listeners like you. You can support the Voice of Free Planet X at patreon.com/Axelrod. You can subscribe to the Voice of Free Planet X via iTunes, Stitcher, or by plugging in the feed at planetx.libsyn.com. The Voice of Free Planet X is distributed by GPR.
GPR.
Oh, GPR.
Galactic Public Radio.
Thank you for listening.